What's up guys, I've been a Challenger player since set 3 and with the latest patch 13.8 just releasing a few days ago, I have just finished releasing my brand new 13.8 Flex Guide after playing a bit on the latest patch. So one really big thing that they changed in the latest patch was they finally nerfed Hacker. Hacker was extremely oppressing to play against in the last patch just because there was a very particular way to position against Hacker where you needed to clump up all your units on the third row. But that positioning gets absolutely destroyed by all the ASOL and MF players. So it all came down to matchmaking RNG. If you were positioned against Hacker, you win. But if you weren't, you just get farmed by all the AoE players. However, since this is out of the way, there are actually a lot more comps that are viable in the current patch. I actually think that this patch is the most balanced patch out of the entire set 8.5. And a lot of comps can win in top 4. So I think that this patch is all about spot recognition, recognizing your current spot and what lines you could play and what lines you should not play. So in this particular flex guide, I added a small table here indicating when you should play each comp and the conditions you should look for. For example, reroll KAISA, stuff you'll look out for is hold the line and multi-shot. You should also look out for an early KAISA or a Shiv. Anima squad, you should play with Anima +1, or if you get a very strong Anima opener, that way you could snowball off the fame. Reroll Ashe is laser focus. Star Guardian +1, play Star Guardians. Laser +1, you play Laser Core. Winds of the fucking Wanderer, you play reroll Yasuo. This shit got buffed so hard. I'm not sure if it got buffed, but I know the AI for the Yasuo is really strong. For example, I don't know why, but Yasuo just somehow finds a way to one-shot the KAISA in the corner of your board at all times. I don't even know how. So Yasuo plays really well into the current meta with this augment just because it shits on all the KAISA boards really hard as well. Gadget +1, reroll Gnar. Mech Threat is a really strong flex comp and you can play for top 4 of this if you roll down to level 7 at 0. Time and a half SIVIR, you reroll SIVIR. INFINITEAM +1, INFINITEAM. Get excited, reroll JINX. For Jax, there are a lot of things that need to align for you to play Jax, but if they do align, you could top 4 with Jax. It's just that it's really rare for this to happen, but shit like team-wide HP scaling is really good with Jax, scoped weapons, Brawler +1. Generally, you need 2 or 3 of these conditions to align to even consider playing Jax, but this is still a fine comp. And Renegade is the last comp I included. It's just a super high roll comp in the current meta. You could play it, but you need to be level 8 and you have a shitload of econ and HP to stabilize with this board. With that being said, I'm just going to jump straight into the comp guide. So first comp on the list is going to be reroll KAISA. So reroll KAISA is still in an extremely strong spot. I would say it's around the 3rd strongest reroll comp. It's below Gnar reroll, but Gnar reroll is dependent on Gadget Team +1. And it's below Yasuo reroll, but Yasuo is dependent on Winds of the Wanderer. For KAISA, you could actually play it from different angles. You could play it from multi-shot and you could play it from hold the line. And you could also play it from an early KAISA if you have a Shiv, and you could tailor your 3-2 augment to guarantee that you hit the multi-shot later. So KAISA, there are a lot more ways to play into it. So KAISA is a tempo comp. What a tempo comp is it basically takes advantage of stages where standard level 7 and 8 comps are weak and win streaks during that stage interval. So for example, KAISA, you generally want to 5 lose into 3-2 if your board is shit early. And then you want to slight roll at 3-2 to enable your board to win streak you all the way until stage 4-1. Just because standard comps generally don't roll any time between 3-2 and 4-1, which will enable you to win every fight. So on your 3-2 roll down, you don't want to actually be looking to assemble your final dream team board. You actually just want to pick up every single upgrade you could get. So for example, the level 7 board generally looks something like this. If you just hit a random Fiora 2 or something, Fiora is a duelist, so it matches well with Nyla. Even though Fiora doesn't go into your final board, you still want to pick it up just to ensure that you keep this tempo going between 3-2 and 4-1 because you need that win streak goal to hit the KAISA 3 later. So if you hold the line, you want to slow roll at 6 instead of 7 for KAISA, just because you want to hit the REL first. Since REL is a 2-cost unit, the best odds to hit the REL are going to be at level 6. After you hit the REL, you can push levels, go 7, and then go for the KAISA 3. If you're playing around multi-shot, you could just give up on the REL, just go 7 like I said before, slight roll at 6 for your 2-star board, and then go 7 and slow roll for KAISA 3. Your board will probably look something like this, and if you're not playing around the REL, your tank items will go on the Garen instead. Later on, you can level and play around Misfortune, and secondary carry her as well. If you're close to the 3-star Nyla and the 3-star Morgana, you could go for it. But in general, you need to recognize when to give up on these units, just because a naked Nyla and a naked Morgana probably isn't going to do much for you when you just be spending that gold to try to hit your Rel or your KAISA instead. If you're contested as KAISA, one option you have is to push levels and just play around the Misfortune dual carry and play for top 4 instead. That's one thing to keep in mind as well. Comp on the list is going to be REROLL YASUO. So this comp suddenly became very strong. I don't know what they did to YASUO or the augment Winds of the Wanderer, but for some reason this shit fucking obliterates KAISA. YASUO will always find a way to somehow throw his tornado towards KAISA in the backline corner and just ends up one-shotting her, winning you the fight instantly. But basically, you could only play this comp if you get Winds of the Wanderer. And again, it's similar to KAISA in the sense that it is a tempo comp. This comp spikes really hard at stage 3 too, but in the beginning, I would say that, I wouldn't say it's weak early game, but it's definitely like not extremely powerful. You generally have to roll down at 3-2 to 2-star your board and have it look something like this. And then you econ back up, and then you slow roll at level 6 for 3-star Lee Sin, Nautilus, is Malphite, 3-star Yasuo, and 3-star Fiora, and then you can push levels and play around 6 duelists as well. If you somehow get a duelist +1, you could also consider not playing around the supers and playing around 8 duelists instead. So you would just get the REROLL YASUO, give up on the Lee Sin and the Malphite, and then just go 8 and play around 8 duelists. So for the itemization for Yasuo, you really want Hodge and you really want JG, and the last item generally is going to be either Titans or QSS. There are a lot of different options you could go. For example, you could go Hodge, Titans. You could go Titans, JG, Titans, Hodge. Ideally, you just flex around these four items: Hodge, Titans, JG, and Gunblade and QSS. They're all generally pretty good on Yasuo. And then once you hit like all your 3 stars, you just push levels and play into the vertical duelists. One small tip, I guess, like if you want to position around Yasuo if you're playing KAISA, I think how the AI for Yasuo works is he throws his tornado at the largest clump. So let's say like you're playing KAISA, you want to position all your shitters here and then put your KAISA in the backline right corner here. So Yasuo will initially throw his tornado towards the largest clump and your KAISA will live as long as possible. But that's it for REROLL YASUO. On to the next comp. So next up is going to be REROLL JINX. So REROLL JINX is a comp I have never covered in my previous flex guides before, but for some reason on the current patch, the stats for this augment is fucking insane. The Get Excited has an average placement of like a 4.1 at 2-1. So if you get Excited, honestly, and you have like the Anima opener, I would just hard force this Jinx 3 comp, assuming you're not contested. So game plan for this is to just play standard, farm as many stacks as you can until stage 3-2, and slow roll for Jinx 3. You want to slam any items you get on your Jinx because, again, Anima Squad is very snowbally. It's dependent on you farming a lot of the fame throughout your early and mid game to be able to scale into late game. And if you're able to hit this Jinx 3 at a reasonable time, you will be able to win every single fight until stage 5, and you will have like hundreds of fame by stage 5. Basically a guaranteed top 3. After you get to level 8, you just play the standard Anima Squad board, which I'll go into in a later part of the video. For itemization, like I said before, itemization for Jinx, it's fake. You don't want this. You just slam wherever the fuck you get because you want to be farming those fame stacks early. But in an ideal world, I would say that probably Shiv is BIS on Jinx. Shiv +2. So you also want, I think Shojin's pretty good on Jinx. Gunblade, GS, Hodge, JG. Pretty much any typical mana generation, attack speed, and AP items on her will do just fine. And then later on, Jinx will become your secondary carry and your primary will be Misfortune. So next comp on the list is going to be Mech Threats. So this comp I think has always been pretty good, but in this patch in particular, because they nerf all of the stupid hacker comps where they kill your backline first and then target the mech, this comp is a lot better because most fights are always going to be front to back. And they have a very hard time getting past your Garen in the front. And Asol and Belvith and Morgana are just really strong units that you could consistently hit at level 7, which makes this a really strong comp you could default to play for top 4. So for example, if you have no idea what the fuck you're doing, you have no direction early game, mid game, your items give you no direction, and you have like a Shiv and like a Last Whisper. Your items are pretty spread out between AD and AP. You could play towards this comp And this is a comp that could easily get you a top 4 from the worst spots imaginable. Generally, your board is just going to be the mech frontline, a random tank unit next to Garen, and it's going to be Morgana, Asol, and Belveth. After you 2-star most of your board, you go 8 and then play around Fiddle or Got. Eventually, you do want to drop the Morgana, but only after you get the Fiddle. But yeah, later on, if you hit like a random second Asol, you just play 2 copies of Asol and put like chalices on your second Asol to buff up your Belveth and your big Asol. And that's pretty much it. There's actually another variation you could play as well that's not around Asol. For example, if you don't hit the Asol and the Belveth, you could also play around a quick draw backline as well. This consists of MF and KAISA, and then you can just flex all of the other units as well. So you flex the Ezreal, flex the Morgana, for example. You don't have to play 3 quick draw. This could just be like a random Asol as well, and then you buff the Asol with the chalices. So next AP comp on the list is just going to be Ox for Spellslingers. This comp is still really strong, and again, the main strength that keeps this comp going in the current meta is just because of how easy it is to stabilize at level 7. If you manage to hit a 2-star Annie, 2-star Fiora at level 7, and a 1-star Alistar, and just 1 copy of TF with the right items, you're fucking chilling all the way until level 8. TF, for some reason, even at a 1-star TF with the right items, will fucking 1v9 their entire team, as long as your Oxforce frontline lives long enough. So at level 7, you roll down for a board like this to stabilize, and then later on, your ideal level 8 or 9 board, you generally want to drop this shitter for Janna. You want to play around a Syndra later, and you also want to throw in the Echo at level 9 as well. The other variations to this comp is if you get either an Ox +1 or a Spellslinger +1. So in the Ox +1 variant, it gives you the opportunity to play around 6 Spellslingers. It doesn't let you play 6 Ox just because there's only 4 Oxforce units in the game, and the +1 doesn't allow you to hit any new breakpoints. If you get a Oxforce +2 though, you definitely want to play into the 6 Oxforce because that shit is a fucking guaranteed top 2. In the other scenario where you get a Spellslinger +1, you want to also play around 6 Spellslingers as well, just because that's the new breakpoint that allows you to hit, and your board will look something like this, and you want to Spellslinger +1 the Viego. Next comp on the list is going to be Vertical Star Guardians. So I would only play into Vertical Star Guardians if I get the Star Guardian +1. So for this comp, you actually generally would have to slight roll at level 7 just because you need a Star Guardian spat holder. What you want to be looking for is probably someone like either Asol or Misfortune. Misfortune is the ideal candidate just because she benefits the most from the Star Guardian spat, and she synergizes very well with KAISA as well because they're both quick draws. Once you get that 1 copy of Misfortune, you want to try to go 8 because you generally want to hit the Syndra. It enables you to hit your level 8 power spike to hit vertical 8-stick Star Guardians. And then once you get your Syndra in, you basically have the fucking Exodia board. You have Misfortune ulting every 2 seconds, and Syndra constantly keeps throwing shitters in every 2 seconds, and your frontline will basically never die. You generally want to put all your tank items on your Echo. For itemization for Misfortune, you don't want Shojin on her just because she already has so much mana generation already from the Star Guardian spat. You're better off just going double damage, and then if you get any chalices, you can put the chalice on the KAISA. Make sure you have either a Spark or a Shiv in your team because you do need that MR Shred. So next comp on the list is going to be Anima Squad. So Anima Squad is a comp that is extremely dependent on your opener. Some indications that you should play towards Anima Squad is if you get an Anima Squad +1 very early, or you could also play without the +1, but that's contingent on you hitting the Silas 2 and the Nasus 2 really early, and a random Jinx or a Vayne, because you need to start farming stacks early to start snowballing you towards the mid and late game. So for this comp, generally the level 8 board is going to look something like this if you're playing around the MF. MF really likes Shojin +2. She likes Archangels a lot. She likes Gunblade. You also really want some type of MR shred in this comp. So for example, Shiv is really good if you put it on KAISA, who is the secondary carry of this comp if you're primary carrying your MF. If you don't manage to hit the Shiv, you could put the Spark on the Riven, and that will be the MR shred for your board. So the other variation to this comp is primary carrying your Vayne instead if you get Spread Shot. So your Spread Shot board will be carrying your Vayne instead. This is a slightly different variation where you're playing around Alistar and Fiora as well. However, both variations are really good. The front line doesn't actually matter. It's the primary carry and their items that actually matters the most in this comp. So if you get a Anima Squad +1, it's pretty easy. You just drop one of your shitters that aren't an Anima Squad unit. So for example, like maybe you drop like the Garen if you don't hit a 2-star Garen, and you just play the Nasus instead, and you Anima Squad your KAISA, and you'll have 7 Anima Squad. Generally though, if you only have an Anima Squad, if you only have 1 Anima Squad spat, you could play like 7 Anima Squad for your mid game, but late game it is stronger for you to drop out of your Sylas and your Nasus, simply because they're 1-star units, and generally as a golden rule towards the late game, you always want to try to drop out of your 1-star shitters. If you get 2 Anima Squad spats though, then I would probably consider sticking with playing 7 Anima Squad late game. Those are just my thoughts on the decision on whether or not you want to play 5 or 7. So the last AP comp I'll be talking about in this video is going to be JINX. So like KAISA and YASUO and NAR and all the other reroll comps, JINX is a tempo comp just like them. JINX takes advantage of stages where other comps are weak, like 3-2 to 4-1, wins all of those rounds, and then rolls down again at 4-1 to 2-star their board, and econs back up to go for the 3-star JINX and the Riven. However, JINX is a comp where a lot more conditions need to be met for it to be played as compared to stuff like KAISA. KAISA has a shitload of hero augments that support her, but JINX, both of JINX's hero augments are pretty fucking garbage. Like the average win rates or the average placement for Relentless Assault and like the other one are pretty bad. Like the better one is actually the one that sacrifices the JINX, but JINX is your main carry, so you can't actually pick that one for this comp. So for JINX, to play JINX, you not only need a good brawler opener, you need a good admin. You need to be able to start scaling the admin early. So for example, the best admin you could get in this comp is gain 5 max HP per second for your entire team. That way, if you get it early, by the late game, by stage 5, your JINX will have like 4,000 HP and your board will basically never die. Another good indicator to play JINX is if you get scoped weapons. That way, you don't actually have to build the RFC on the JINX. You just go 3 other damage items and you'll basically have a fucking 4-item JINX in the backline. And if you combine it with the admin, you're basically going to have like a fucking 20-item JINX. So for JINX, one thing I realized that the itemization for JINX is not as important as the itemization for your Riven. The actual real carry behind this comp is the fucking Ionic Spark on the Riven. Because most of your damage is actually magic damage for your entire team, the Spark actually enables your team to do so much more fucking damage than going for 3 damage items on your JINX early game. And because JINX is a lot more flexible with damage items, JINX can use RFC, Guinsoo's, GS, Gunblade, QSS, Hodge. You're basically guaranteed to get the perfect items you want for JINX anyway. You just want to guarantee that you win your early and mid-game fights, and that's contingent on the fact that you hit the Spark on the Riven sometime throughout the early and mid-game. So game plan for JINX, you don't have to lose streak. You generally actually want to win most of your fights as much as possible because every HP matters. But you definitely want to win 3-2 to 4-1. And you want to roll down again at 4-1 to 2-star your board. And you want to win 4-1 to 4-5 if possible. Then you want to econ back up and go for Riven 3 and JINX 3. If you get a Brawler +1, you generally have to go 8 to play 8 Brawlers. But otherwise, playing 6 Brawlers is fine as long as you hit the 3-star JINX. So on to the AD comps. The first AD comp on the list is going to be Reroll ASHE. So Reroll ASHE could only be played if you get the hero augment Laser Focus. But if you do get Laser Focus, just hard force this comp. Laser Focus currently has one of the best average placements for hero augments in the current patch. It's a 3.9. So that just shows you how strong this comp is. Game plan for this is to just 5 lose into neutrals and then slow roll at level 5 above 50 gold. And then at 4-1, you generally want to all in for 3-star Blitz and 3-star ASHE. The Blitz is actually really important in this comp just because if you don't hit this 3-star Blitz, you're not going to have enough frontline for your ASHE to shred through their entire team. So best in slot ASHE, it is Last Whisper +2. I don't exactly know what the best in slot for ASHE is, but according to stats, it's Last Whisper, Guinsoo's, and Runan's. So those are the 3 best items. But in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I think for this comp, because you want to win all of your fights right after you hit the ASHE 3-star, you just slam whatever the fuck you get aside from the Last Whisper. The Last Whisper you actually need. You just slam whatever items you get to win streak all the way until you get to level 8 to hit your Mordekaiser, and that will guarantee you the top 3. So later on, your board will probably look something like this. You'll have 5 Laser Core, you play around the Mordekaiser and the Warwick. And then you also have a second sure shot like Samira. And this is also really good for you if you get the laser +1. That way you'll be able to play around 6 laser core. If you don't hit the Mordekaiser, you just play a third sure shot, someone like SIVIR, or you just play like a random Fiddlesticks in your front line. Alright, so next up is going to be Reroll Gnar. So for Reroll Gnar, you only want to play towards this comp if you get a Gadgeting +1. Otherwise, this comp is generally unplayable just because Gnar really needs the extra damage reduction and damage you get from the 5 Gadgeting breakpoint. And if you don't have a Gadgeting +1, you won't be able to hit 5 Gadgeting until level 8, and that's contingent on you hitting the Nunu. So if you do have the Gadgeting +1, you could hit 5 Gadgeting at level 5, which is crazy because you just pick up a Gnar from the carousel, you just win streak all the way for the next 10 years. So this comp is really strong just because you're win streaking the moment you hit 5 Gadgeting. You don't even need 2-star Gnar. And game plan for Gnar, Reroll Gnar is at level 6, you slight roll for a board that can win streak you all the way from 3-2 to 4-1. And at 4-1, you roll down again for this exact board, and you want to send Gnar into the backline to one-shot their whole team. So best in slot Gnar is going to be Last Whisper, Titans, and BT. However, if you're only able to complete 2 of the items, the good thing about Gadgeting is the items you get from the Gadgeting 5 trait is usually either Hodge, Titans, or BT, and you could usually just use one of those items to finish off the 3rd item in Gnar. So it's actually really good to play Reroll Gnar when you're playing around Gadgeting. And LeBlanc uses these items really well as well. So again, Gnar is a tempo comp just like KAISA and YASUO, etc. So at level 7, once you're stable, you econ back up, and then you roll down again for 3-star Gnar, which is the most important. If you manage to hit 3-star Pyke, you go for Pyke as well, LeBlanc, and Shen, and Annie. So next comp on the list is going to be Reroll SIVIR. So Reroll SIVIR could pretty much only be played if you get the hero augment Time and a Half. The reason why Time and a Half is really good with SIVIR is just because for Time and a Half, you get a set amount of gold for every 42 AD your SIVIR has, and a 3-star SIVIR is going to have like 200 or something AD, which basically gives you 5 gold every turn. So if you slow roll at level 6 for this 3-star SIVIR and you have that augment, you basically make all of your gold back by 6 or 7 turns later, and you're on track to go fast 9 to play around 5 INFINITEAM with Ezreal 2-star. So if you're playing around this comp, you generally want SIVIR on your backline INFINITEAM portal until you hit an Ezreal 2, because a SIVIR 3 is better than a SIVIR 3 is stronger than a Samira 2, and a SIVIR 3 is stronger than an Ezreal 1. So you actually only want to swap SIVIR out of the INFINITEAM portal until you hit the Ezreal 2. With that being said, this is pretty much what your mid-game board will look like, and you later just transition into a late-game INFINITEAM board later, which I'll show later in the video when I cover the actual INFINITEAM comp. So next up is going to be the INFINITEAM comp. This is going to be the late-game board for INFINITEAM. There are actually a lot of different variations for INFINITEAM. So generally in INFINITEAM, you only want to play towards this comp if you get either an INFINITEAM +1 or you have a really cracked early game INFINITEAM opener. So what a cracked early game INFINITEAM opener looks like is probably like if you get like a 2-star Pantheon, 2-star Lucian, and like 1 copy of SIVIR, and you start the game with Last Whisper. That is what I would consider a really strong opener for INFINITEAM, because it provides the easiest transition into a level 8 board with a lot of econ and HP to spare. So your level 8 board, you're itemizing your Samira. This is probably one of the ideal setups for Samira. And then late game, once you find the Ezreal, you just put all of your leftover late game items on your Ezreal. You probably pick up late game full items from Carousel and try to itemize your Ezreal in that way. You generally do not want to sell your 2-star Samira just to transfer over the items to the Ezreal. If you hit that INFINITEAM +1, you want to put the INFINITEAM spat on your Garen. Garen does really well with the INFINITEAM spat just because you have 2 copies of Garen with a shitload of items and they both stun their entire team. It's actually really broken. Another very good contender for the INFINITEAM spat is if you get Fiddlesticks or Mordekaiser. You get 2 Fiddlesticks, which will double cast, or you'll either get 2 Mordekaisers, which will double cast as well. And yes, Mordekaiser is an ace as well, just like Samira, but Mordekaiser is worth to INFINITEAM even though it cancels out the ace bonus. So the last AP comp I'm going to be covering is going to be LaserCorp. So LaserCorp is a comp I would only play if you get a LaserCorp +1. That's because it enables you to hit all of the LaserCorp breakpoints a lot earlier than usual, and it gives you a late game to play around, which is the 6 LaserCorp power spike with Mordekaiser. So generally your late game board is going to look something like this. you want to dual carry or trio carry your Warwick, your TF, and your Mordekaiser. Your TF will actually benefit from all the Laser Corps drones as well because it gives gives a drone to your entire team. And because TF uses Shiv really well, and Shiv is really good with Laser Corps because it shreds MR and enables the drones to do more damage, TF is just the perfect unit to play in this comp because he's also a duelist as well. So when you itemize Warwick, it's different from itemizing Warwick in a typical AD comp, like AD Warwick. You actually just want to itemize Warwick in a way where he will die last, so he will be able to continue resetting off of all the kills he gets from the Laser Corps drones. And the perfect combination of items for that is going to be Edge of Night, Titans, and Bloodthirster. If you don't have the static Shiv on your TF, the Bloodthirster could also be a Spark instead. And because that will enable Warwick to get to the backline and shred their MR, so your drones will do the most damage possible. And if you're able to hit this Mordekaiser, it's usually a guaranteed top 3. Alright guys, so that sums up my 13.8 flex guide. There are actually a lot of viable comps that you can play in this patch, and it's probably the most fun patch of the current set. If you guys found this video helpful or this document helpful, I would really appreciate it if you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel or followed me on Twitch. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next patch.